Yamunatira vanachari. Yamunatira vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Kacharya Ashtotara Shata Shishimat. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to Guru Gauranga. Oh, glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, chapter 7, further inquiries by Vidura, verses 36 and 37. So I'll just read 36 and then we will repeat together 37. Anuvratanam Shishyanam Putranam cha Dvijotama Aparshtam api Bruhur Guravo Dina Vatsalaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Oh, best among the Brahmanas, those who are spiritual masters are very kind to the needy. They are always kind to their followers, disciples, and sons, and without being asked by them, the spiritual master describes all that is knowledge. Purport: there are many subjects to be known from the bona fide spiritual master. The followers, disciples, and sons are all on one level for the bona fide spiritual master, and he is always kind to them and always speaks to them on transcendental subjects, even though he is not asked by them. That is the nature of the bona fide spiritual master. Vidura appealed to Maitreya Muni to speak on subjects about which he might not have asked. And text 37, let's repeat together. Tatvanam bhagavam stesham Katida pratishankramaha Tatremam ka upashiran Kausvit anusherate Tatvanam bhagavam stesham Katida pratisankrama Tatremam ka upashiran Kaushvit anusherate Tatvanam bhagavam stesham Katida pratishankramaha Tatrimam ka upashiran Kausvit anusherate Tatvanam bhagavam stesham Katidha pratishankramaha Tatrimam ka upashiran Kausvit Anusherate. Tatvana Bhagavam Stesham Katidha Pratisangramaha Tatre Mam Khao Pashiran Kausvit Anusherate. Matajis. Tatvana Bhagavam Stesham Katida Pratisankramaha Tatre Mamka Upashidan Tatvavam Bhagavam Stesham Katida Pratisangramaha Tatre Mamka Upashidan Kausvin Anusherate. Tatvanam, of the elements of nature. Bhagavan, O great sage. Tesham, of them. Katida, how many? Pratisankramaha, dissolutions. Tatra, thereupon. Imam, unto the Supreme Lord. Ke, who are they? Upashiran, being saved. Ke, who are they? Who, Svit, may. Anusherate, serve the Lord while he sleeps. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of the material nature, and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. Purport. In the Brahma Samhita 5:47-48, it is said that all the material manifestations with innumerable universes appear and disappear with the breathing of Mahavishnu, lying in Yoga Nidra or mystic sleep. Yakara narna vajale bhajatisma yoga nidra mananta jagadanda saroma kupa Adara Shakti Mavalambya Param Swamurtim Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nishvasita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadantanata Vishnur Mahansa Ihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govinda, the ultimate and supreme personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, lies sleeping unlimitedly on the causal ocean in order to create unlimited numbers of universes during that sleep. He lies on the water by his own internal potency, and I worship that original supreme Godhead. Due to his breathing, innumerable universes come into existence, and when he withdraws his breath, there occurs the dissolution of all the lords of the universes. That plenary portion of the Supreme Lord is called Mahavishnu, and he is a part of the part of Lord Krishna. I worship Govinda, the original Lord. After the dissolution of the material manifestations, the Lord and his kingdom beyond the causal ocean do not disappear, nor do the inhabitants the Lord associates. The associates of the Lord are far more numerous than the living entities who have forgotten the Lord due to material association. The impersonalist's explanation of the word aham in the fourth verse in the 4th verse of the original Bhagavatam, aham evasam evagre, etc., is refuted here. The Lord and his eternal associates remain after the dissolution. Vidura's inquiry about such persons is a clear indication of the existence of all the paraphernalia of the Lord. This is also confirmed in the Kashi Kanda, as quoted by both Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, who follow in the footsteps of Srila Sridhar Swami. Nachyavante hiyad bhakta mahatmyam pralayapati ato chuto kile loke saeka sarvago vyaya. The devotees of the Lord never annihilate their individual existences even after the dissolution of the entire cosmic manifestation. The Lord and the devotees who associate with him are always eternal in both material and spiritual worlds. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gnanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. So we could say, two main topics here that we can discuss. And apart from that, we heard that today is the appearance or disappearance day of many great Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And let's see if we have a little bit time at the end, we can say something about that. And apart from this, today is Vasanta Panchami. In India, this is considered the beginning of spring. So everybody's in a very jolly mood because the cold is over, suffering is over, and now is coming the fun for a few weeks, and then starts the other problem, the heat. So yeah, Vasanta Panchami, it's a nice festival in India. So as Vilas Prabhu was explaining yesterday, we have many questions in this chapter, and although so many questions were asked, here Vidura is saying something very interesting in the previous verse, in the first verse that we read. Basically, he's saying to Maitreya, I ask you about many things, please answer to these questions, but also tell me many other things about which I did not ask. So basically he's, yes, he's saying, anyway, maybe I forgot something, or maybe I missed something. If you think that something else is important that you have to address, please also give me this mercy. Which is very interesting moment, very, very interesting point. And then actually, if we think a little bit here, we can see how great is the qualification of both guru and disciple in this relationship. Like Vidura, he's so qualified person. He was a prime minister, and he was very austere, and he was so intelligent. He knew so many precise questions, because how you're going to get the mercy of the guru if you don't ask good questions? So that was the qualification in this case of Vidura, who is representing the disciple in this conversation. And he's very self-controlled, because actually he went on a pilgrimage to purify himself. He's very obedient to his guru, and he is asking the right questions, and he has the proper mood to accept the answers. So all these things, they are part of the qualification of the disciple. And then from his side, the guru, Maitreya Muni, he was also very qualified because he could answer all these questions. Like, so many questions were asked and not easy to answer to these questions. And Maitreya, he was so qualified, he could answer properly to all these questions. So he had proper knowledge, and he didn't have only knowledge, but rather he had realization on the basis of this knowledge. We know that Maitreya Muni, he was the fortunate personality that had the darshan of Krishna while Krishna was living this world. While Krishna was living this world, Uddhava was there, and Krishna was speaking with Uddhava, and this conversation is known as Uddhava Gita, correct? Uddhava Gita, which is described a little bit later in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Maitreya, he was present there, and he was witness. He heard all the transcendental knowledge Krishna gave to Uddhava. So in this way, he was qualified. He got knowledge, transcendental knowledge. He got it directly by the Supreme Lord, and he got directly the darshan of the Supreme Lord. So he was very qualified personality. Now I wanted to give a little bit more time on this subject, the qualification of the disciple, especially because we are here kind of disciples, and it's good for us to know what is the proper mood of a disciple, and what are the proper activities, how he is relating properly to his guru. So I wanted to read a little bit from very famous purport from Bhagavad Gita. Is the purport in regards to verse 434, very famous verse. Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya uparekshanti te gyanam gyaninas tattva darshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because he has seen the truth. So, now Srila Prabhupada has extremely essential purport to this verse. Listen carefully. Yes, with both ears. The path of spiritual realization is undoubtedly difficult. The Lord therefore advises us to approach a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession from the Lord himself. No one can be a bona fide spiritual master without following this principle of disciplic succession. So this is the qualification of the guru. He has to be bona fide representative of Guru Parampara. The Lord is the original spiritual master, and a person in disciplic succession can convey the message of the Lord as it is to his disciple. No one can be spiritually realized by manufacturing his own process, as is the fashion of the foolish pretenders. The Bhagavatam says, Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. The path of religion is directly enunciated by the Lord. Therefore, mental speculation or dry arguments cannot help lead one to the right path. So now gradually Srila Prabhupada is describing what the disciple should not do and what the disciple should do. So basically, the real disciple, he is not speculating. He is not trying to figure out on his own what is the spiritual reality or what the Vedas are saying, but rather he is approaching his guru and he is trying to hear submissively from him, and understand properly this knowledge. Nor by independent study of books of knowledge can one progress in spiritual life. One has to approach a bona fide spiritual master to receive the knowledge. Such a spiritual master should be accepted in full surrender. So full surrender. It's not half. It's not like 65%, not 85%. This is the purport to text 434. Tad vidi pranipatena pariprashnena seve. Full surrender. And one should serve the spiritual master like a menial servant without false prestige. So we surrender to the Guru. So this is the proper mood. The proper mood of a disciple is the mood of surrender. The mood should not be, I know, everything is clear to me. But anyway, I'll just ask you just to confirm. I already know the absolute truth, but anyway, let me just confirm with you. This is not the proper mood. The proper mood is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is showing the proper mood of the perfect disciple. He is saying, my Guru told me that I'm too stupid to understand spiritual knowledge. That's why he told me, just chant Hare Krishna. So this is the mood of the spiritual master. In front of his Guru, he is always like a fool. Not that he is a fool, but he has this mentality that I don't know anything and I'm completely dependent on the mercy of my spiritual master. And he can be a very elevated personality and he can be very learned, but still, in order the relationship to be proper, his mood should be such that I don't know anything, and actually you, as my Gurudev, as my spiritual master, you can tell me what is the proper understanding on the subject matter. So this is the proper mood, and then coming from this proper mood should be the activities of service. The disciple should not be ready just to ask questions his Guru, but he should be ready to render service. This will help him really to imbibe the proper mood in order to understand the transcendental knowledge. And Srila Prabhupada is saying the disciple should be ready to serve as a menial servant. So he is not picky and choosy. Like, Guru Maharaj, I want to do this service for you. This other service, no, this other service, I don't like it. No, whatever the Guru wants from the disciple should do. And we see amazing examples from personalities like, for example, Narottam Das Thakur. He wanted to render service to his Guru, but his Guru was so detached and independent, he didn't want to accept any service. And then Narottam Das Thakur hiddenly was going to the place where his Guru was going to toilet early in the morning and cleaning this place. And in this way, indirectly, he was trying to render some service to his Guru. And then his Guru became very angry by seeing that someone is trying to render service to him. And being very intelligent, understood this is Narottam and went to him, said, what you're trying to do without my permission? And because Narottam Das Thakur was very clever, he said, I'm not doing anything. The three modes of material nature, they're doing everything. So I don't have anything to do with it. And then Lokanath Maharaj understood, wow, this boy is very intelligent, very clever. He noticed him then at that moment. So proper mood and service, ready to always render service to the spiritual master. Inquiries and submission constitute the proper combination for spiritual understanding. So we ask questions, but we ask the questions with the proper mood, and then we will get knowledge. Unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. One must be able to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of a disciple, he automatically blesses the disciple with genuine spiritual understanding. So the spiritual master may test the disciple to see if the disciple is sincere. Why you are coming here to me? Why you are coming? Like, what's your motivation? You want money from me? You want blessings to be materially nicely situated? Why you are coming? Or you want transcendental knowledge? You want to go back to Krishna, to the spiritual world? The spiritual master may test the disciple before giving him transcendental knowledge. Disciple should be ready for this test, should be prepared to take this test. In this verse, both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. Blind following and absurd inquiries. What means absurd inquiries? Yes. Asking questions that will not help us in advancing in spiritual knowledge. Well, what's the problem if I ask my guru what to eat for breakfast, for example? He can tell me, he's very wise. What's the problem? Is there a problem? What do you think?
I think that it'd be very nice to
ask
him that kind of question, because it could help. But when I was thinking about an absurd question, I remember an example where Srila Prabhupada, he was in India, and then like a hippie came onto the stage and started yelling at him like, why is like the Bhagavad Gita like actually like 5,000 years old, right? He was like a challenging question. That's what came to my mind.
Okay. Yes, this is one kind of improper question.
Like kind of like you said already, like thinking we already know the answer, like just asking and not taking what they say to heart, and not actually listening to the answer.
Yes, this is also, but this is a little bit different. You want to say? Yeah.
Maybe questions which are not connected to Krishna or spiritual life.
Questions which are not related to Krishna or spiritual life. Yes.
Like
Exactly.
I think someone asked Srila Prabhupada about how many windows are there in Empire State Building, something like that. The UN building, yeah. The UN building. That's
Challenging question.
Questions about some mundane, aspect. Of course, the spiritual master knows everything about spiritual life. He may not know all the details of every material thing that's
Sphere of
possible to
knowledge.
know. Right.
Yes.
Only Krishna knows all those things.
Yes. Yeah, so basically, whatever is related to Krishna consciousness directly or indirectly, this is a good question to ask the spiritual master. In other words, we have to ask the spiritual master how to advance in spiritual life. This is the most important thing. Because for the other things, we can go to many other personalities. Like there are so many people who are expert in, let's say, I don't know, mathematics or chemistry or biology. There are many people who are expert. They can give you some knowledge in all these fields. Spiritual master, he is expert in his field. What is his field? How to become free from the material existence and how to go back home, back to Krishna. This is his expertise. So we have to ask him about these things. And we should not follow the spiritual master blindly. What means to follow blindly? Yes. With closed eyes?
So
You walk behind him with closed eyes or what?
So saying that when we have doubts that arise, we don't express those doubts.
We don't.
We don't. So to follow blindly is to continue following the spiritual master, or to try to follow the spiritual master without expressing our questions, in order that we logically and rationally accept the entire philosophy.
Okay, yeah. This some aspect of following blindly. Something else? Maharaj, would you like to comment?
Well, I think, blind following are two things, trying to follow some direction by the spiritual master without actually understanding what he means, hearing something and imperfectly carrying it out when there's some doubt about what the spiritual master means. Or for that matter, it could happen that way in philosophy too, that one is following without understanding the philosophy. He just robot repeating like a parrot the philosophy, but he doesn't understand what the philosophy is there. Also, it can mean that one is not using their intelligence to analyze what's being said. So as a result, they're just passive. They don't have any kind of grasp of what's happening. Whatever the spiritual master says, they just accept it without attempting to understand it in any bit, any depth.
Yes. So basically the disciple is hearing the words of the spiritual master, but he may miss the point, the essence, the desire of the spiritual master. Do you remember this nice story? There is a nice story with a Guruji and a disciple, and the disciple, he was very kind of stupid. That's why he was following very blindly whatever the Guru was saying. So one time they went on a trip and the Guruji was on a horse and the disciple was walking behind, and then something fell down from the Guru, something precious, and then little later the Guru said, well, where is this thing? And then the disciple said, I think it fell down at some point. And Guru said, why you didn't pick it up and give it to me? He said, I didn't know. And the Guru said, wow, these guys. And then the Guru said, okay, if something falls down from the horse, take it and give it to me, okay? And then he said, yeah, sure. And then little later, the horse had to go to the toilet. And then the disciple saw and said, well, Guruji said, I have to follow the orders. And he took it. And he said, Guru Maharaj. And then the Guru said, wow, this guy is really. And then he said, okay, give me a list of paper. Now I'm going to write everything that if it falls from the horse, you have to pick it up. Otherwise, no. Okay? Yes, Guru Maharaj. And then he wrote a long list like this. And then the disciple said, okay, now it's clear. No speculation. And then they continue walking. And at some point, the Guruji was a little bit unattentive. And there was a branch just in front of him. And he beat his head in the branch and fell down from the horse. And the horse continued. And the disciple looked at the Guru. He opened the list. He looked, Guru Maharaj, no, he's not in the list. Okay, so we continue. So yeah, we shouldn't follow the orders of the Guru in this way. We should rather use our intelligence, as Maharaj said, and try to understand the essence. What is the essence of his desire? What he wants us to do? How we can satisfy him? So this in regards to blind following. We should not follow blindly. Not only should one hear submissively from the spiritual master, but one must also get a clear understanding from him in submission and service and inquiries. A bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward his disciple. Therefore, when the student is submissive and is always ready to render service, the reciprocation of knowledge and inquiries becomes perfect. And we see this in this verse in Bhagavatam. And one word that Vidura is using is Dinavatsala. Oh, you are very merciful to the fallen. You are very merciful to the needy. So Srila Prabhupada was saying, this is the qualification of the spiritual master. By nature, a bona fide spiritual master is by nature very kind toward the disciple. So automatically the guru wants to give his mercy to the disciple. Just the disciple shouldn't do something weird to stop the mercy of the guru flowing in his direction. Just he has to be a normal person. Just have a proper mood. And as we said, what is the proper mood? Well, submissive mood, ready to listen, ready to understand. In the spiritual life, we need two things. We need proper mood and we need certain amount of qualification. But from the two, the mood is more important. Because if someone has the proper mood, then even if he's not very qualified, the qualification gradually will appear. But if we don't have the proper mood, then even if we are very qualified, it will be very difficult to work. It will be very difficult to work. There was an interesting story. Some man, he was a businessman, a boss of a company, and he wanted to hire a person for a certain job. So there was two people who were candidates for the work. Then the first person came and he entered into the room. He left the door open and he just sat down and they started speaking and he showed his previous experience, and the boss actually saw that, okay, he's a very qualified person. Then he asked for the second person to come. He entered the room, he closed the door very attentively, he sat down and they started speaking, and he was also qualified, but not as much as the first one. And then the boss said, okay, can you please wait a little bit outside? And then he called for his secretary. I said, so please go and you can tell to the second man he is getting the job. And the secretary said, but you just said that the first one was more qualified. Why you're giving the job to the second one? He said, well, the first one he entered, he was a little bit puffed up. He even didn't close the door. The second one, he was very attentive. So I can understand he has a better mood. And although he is less qualified, just for a very short time, I'll be able to give him all the necessary knowledge to do his job. And then I'll be able to work with him very nicely. Whereas the first person, although he's very qualified, he already has a little bit an attitude. So it will be much more difficult to work with him. So in the same way, the spiritual master, he always wants to give mercy to his disciple. But if a disciple has an attitude, doesn't have a proper mood, then the guru won't be able to do his job, to transmit transcendental knowledge, spiritual knowledge. So yeah, that's one important thing I wanted to discuss a little bit. And now we can say something shortly about the second verse. Srila Prabhupada is mentioning two verses from Brahma Samhita and is speaking about the position of Mahavishnu, how he is sleeping in the causal ocean. And Srila Prabhupada is mentioning something very interesting, that Mahavishnu, he is lying in the water of the causal ocean. So I was always thinking that because the causal ocean is causal ocean, it's something very subtle. But then Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that actually Mahavishnu is lying in the water of the causal ocean, which is very interesting. So Mahavishnu is lying there, and by his breathing, inhaling and exhaling, he is creating and then destroying unlimited universes. And the question of Vidura is how many different kinds of dissolutions we have. And Srila Prabhupada is specifically speaking about this kind of dissolution, which is coming when Mahavishnu is inhaling and all the universes are entering again within his body. Of course, we know there are other dissolutions which take place at other times. Can you mention some of them? Some dissolutions? When we have dissolutions in the universe? Partial. Yeah.
Is it in Brahma's day and night?
Yes, this is one dissolution. When the day of Brahma is finished, there is quite a serious dissolution. Basically, everything in the universe is destroyed under the planet of Brahma. Yeah.
And then I was thinking the year of Brahma. Is there something at the end of the year of Brahma?
There is. Maybe there is also dissolution at that time, but it's not mentioned. Acharyas are not mentioning this one. But they're mentioning that at the end of the day of Brahma there is. Also when there are other dissolutions also.
There is one, I think, at the end of Brahma's life, there is the whole destruction of universe.
Yes, this is the final.
The final one. Then there's
dissolution.
also.
Then
at
the
end of-
universe is entering the body of Mahavishnu. Correct.
Then there is, I think, at the end of Divya Yuga also.
The
Four
end of
yugas.
yes, the end of 4 yugas. Also in between the yugas, there is dissolution. There is different acharyas are giving different opinion about this, but in one place, in one purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying, Jiva Goswami, he is very firm on this and he is giving different quotations to prove that between the different yugas, there is small dissolutions as well. And also, when also there is another important moment when there are dissolutions. There is story from Bhagavatam showing this. One incarnation of Krishna appears in one of those.
I think it was the end of the reign of Manu.
Yes,
And that was it the reign of Swayambhuva Manu. I know is Krishna is the fish incarnation,
correct.
right?
Matsya Avatar.
Matsya
Yes.
avatar with Swayambhuva
Yes.
Manu. Or yes,
It's-
to protect
yeah,
Swayambhuva Manu.
It's
yeah.
other Manu, it's not Swayambhuva.
Not Swayambhuva.
It's Vaivasvata, but
Vaivasvata,
yes, the
I
point
see.
is that when the Manus are changing, again, there is some partial dissolution in the universe, and this pastime is the proof for this. So yeah, different dissolutions are taking place, but the final dissolution is at the end of the life of Brahma. And then Vidura is asking, is there someone who is left after that, who is serving the Lord after that? And by the way, how he's asking the question, please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of the material nature and who survives after the dissolution to serve the Lord. So basically, by the way, how he's asking the questions, he's already saying that, well, there are personalities which stay even after that. Although it's like full dissolution of the universe, there are personalities which stay. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining in his purport that eternal associate of the Lord, they stay always with the Lord. They are not destroyed. There are also demigods which are known as primeval demigods. They are also eternal associates of the Lord. They exist even before the creation, like Hanuman and Garuda, all these great personalities. They exist always. So Srila Prabhupada is giving this quotation, which is actually given by Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami, devotees of the Lord never annihilate their individual existences, even after the dissolution of the entire cosmic manifestation. The Lord and the devotees who associate with him are always eternal in both material and spiritual worlds. So for the devotees, there is no destruction. The universe may be destroyed, but if they are fixed in their Krishna consciousness, nothing can happen to them. They just go back to Krishna and they stay with him and they serve him. That's the explanation here. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. It's 9 o'clock. Some question or Maharaj want to add something?
You were talking just before about the proper attitude toward the spiritual master. There was a time when I was in New Zealand and we were going door to door to distribute Bhagavad Gitas and actually even whole sets of Bhagavatams, you know. So I knocked on one door and a man opened the door and I said, you know, we are monks and we're teaching people about the ancient writings of India, the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And the man didn't say anything. He just did this, you know. And so I went inside, and right inside where the front door was, there was a shelf there. And the shelf had the entire set of Bhagavatams, the entire set of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it had Bhagavad Gita and a few other sundry books on it. And I thought, wow, this guy has already got everything that, you know, that Prabhupada has written. And I noticed that there were little 3x5 cards in all the books. There was at least 7 or 8 marking cards in each of the books. And I said, what are those? And the man said, that's where I found a page where I disagreed with what Prabhupada. So I thought, here was someone who read the entire Bhagavatam and disagreed. I mean, at least if he was going to disagree, he read every page evidently to find out what he wanted to disagree with. But you know, it's kind of like that you're saying, in the wrong attitude, even if you have the entirety of the whole, you know, devotional literature, still it doesn't do anyone any good if they have that attitude that I know something more. And the other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly is that in 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in 7th chapter and 17th verse, we learn about 4 kinds of annihilation. And they are, you know, naimitika, prakritiko, and we have what's called nitya, and finally atyantika. So there are 4 broad categories of annihilation. Naimitika is occasional annihilation, the ones you're talking about, like at the end of Brahma's day, at the end of one of the Manus, et cetera, et cetera. So those are called naimitika. They're regular. Then there's the one that's called prakritiko, which is at the end of Brahma's life, when all the material energy is annihilated altogether. And then there is what's called nitya, which means that everything is constantly being annihilated. So in the material world, constantly.
All the time.
Yeah, it's like constant annihilation. Everything is being annihilated in the material world. And finally, atyantika, which is final annihilation, which means when the living entity discovers that they're not material nature and that they are servants of God, and they leave the material world, and that's called final annihilation for the individual living entity. So I just thought I'd bring that up.
Nice. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you for giving class, as always. I will try to ask a question in the right way. Um, so you were mentioning, you know, surrender, and we can't be like 65% surrendered or 25% surrendered or 1% surrendered. But as a neophyte, how do we increase that a percentage? How can, you know, I may be trying to aspire to be 100% surrendered, but that might not at the present moment, like I might not know what that looks like, you know? How can one aspire to be 100% surrendered while they're still in the learning stages, you know? And how can we approach a guru in that state when we're still very ran by the three modes of material nature? You know, there's sometimes there's passion and sometimes there is ignorance, but being on the mode of goodness is I think what we're trying to aspire to. But even beyond those modes, you know, in truth, how do we reach 100% surrender?
Thank you. Well, my understanding is that our life may not be 100% surrender, and it may take some time so that this can happen. That's why we are saying that Krishna consciousness is a process and it will take certain amount of time. Like sometimes the example is given that you enter under the shower, and once you are under the shower, it's a question of time to become totally purified. So it will take a little bit time. But then the mood with which we are approaching the process of bhakti, approaching Krishna, approaching the spiritual master, should be the mood of 100% surrender personality. Basically, we may see that we are not totally surrendered, that we still have lots of material attachments and material desires. But when we approach Guru, we should approach with this mood that, okay, now that I'm here in front of you, let me try to do everything that you want. See, I know I have some luggage behind, but let me try to imbibe this mood. Let me have this mood of full surrender, total surrender. And then if we, at least theoretically, we should have this understanding. Like Srila Prabhupada is saying in the beginning, introduction to Bhagavad Gita, in order someone to understand Bhagavad Gita, at least theoretically, he has to accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At least theoretically. So at least theoretically, we should have the understanding that this is the right mood, and I should work to enter into this mood. And once we have this sincerity and we are eager to achieve this, it's a question of little bit time to achieve it. By the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, by the mercy of Krishna, it will happen. So we should have the, instead of changing the philosophy and saying, well, who said that we have to be 100% surrender? I read many places that it is said you may not be 100% surrender, and again you can achieve in spiritual life. No, instead of changing the philosophy, rather we should have the proper understanding and gradually try to change ourselves according to the proper situation, according to the philosophy. It's okay? Trying and having proper understanding. Yes. Thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.